Have you ever noticed how a task can take less than 20 minutes to finish, yet somehow you avoid it for 3 entire days like it's a prison sentence? You know exactly what you need to do. Study for the exam, reply to the email, clean your room, go to the gym, start the project. But instead, you suddenly become fascinated by things that never mattered before. You're reorganizing Spotify playlists, watching a guy restore a rusty shovel from 1943. Looking up whether penguins have knees. And the weirdest part is that while you're avoiding the task, you're not even enjoying yourself. People think procrastination is laziness, that you're choosing pleasure over work. But most of the time, procrastination doesn't even feel good. It feels uncomfortable, heavy, like there's a background process running in your brain all day, draining your battery. You're technically resting, but mentally you're still carrying the task everywhere you go. Today, I'm going to show you why that happens, why people keep postponing things even when they know it's hurting them, and how procrastination slowly changes the way you see yourself without you realizing it. Because the real danger isn't one missed task. It's what repeated postponing does to your identity. Imagine you wake up already thinking about something you should do. Maybe it's studying. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's something small that would realistically take 15 minutes, but your brain immediately starts negotiating. I'll do it after breakfast. Maybe later tonight. I need to be in the right mood first. And that last sentence is where the trap begins, because most procrastinators are not waiting for more time. They're waiting for a different feeling. They think at some point motivation will arrive like a delivery package. Suddenly they'll feel focused, clear, energized, disciplined, ready to attack life. But that moment almost never comes naturally. So instead, the task stays there. And every hour you avoid it, the task becomes emotionally heavier. Not because the task changed, but because your relationship to it changed. Think about how weird this is. A math assignment at 9 a.m. feels annoying. The exact same assignment at 9 p.m. feels life-threatening. Nothing changed except the amount of guilt attached to it. Procrastination works a bit like leaving dirty dishes in your room. One plate isn't a problem, but when you keep ignoring it, eventually the room starts feeling psychologically hostile. You don't even want to enter anymore. That's what happens in your mind. Every postponed task leaves behind psychological residue. And eventually, your brain stops seeing tasks as neutral things to complete. It starts seeing them as emotional threats to avoid. This is why people sometimes procrastinate on things they actually want to do. Starting a business, learning an instrument, going to the gym, making videos, applying for opportunities. You'd think desire would automatically create action, but it doesn't. Because procrastination is rarely about the task itself. It's about what the task exposes. Studying exposes how much you don't know. Going to the gym exposes how out of shape you became. Starting the project exposes the possibility that your work might not be good. Sending the message exposes the possibility of rejection. The task becomes connected to judgment, and your brain hates judgment, especially self-judgment. Let me explain why this matters so much. Every time you repeatedly avoid something, your brain starts collecting evidence about who you are, not in a dramatic motivational video way, quietly, automatically. You say you're going to do something. You don't do it. Your brain notices. Then it happens again, and again, and again. Eventually, a subtle shift happens. You stop trusting yourself. This is why chronic procrastination destroys confidence faster than failure does. Failure at least requires action. Procrastination creates a strange situation where you fail yourself without even trying. And over time, your brain starts adjusting your identity around that pattern. I'm just bad at consistency. I always leave things until the last minute. That's just how I am. But most people are confusing a practiced behavior with a personality trait. That's like brushing your teeth with your left hand for 6 months and concluding you were biologically born left-handed. Your brain adapts to repetition. That's it. The scary part is how invisible this process is while it's happening, because procrastination doesn't usually destroy your life in one dramatic moment. It does it slowly. One postponed workout, one delayed application, one ignored opportunity. One, I'll start Monday. Then, suddenly a year passes, and you feel confused about why your life still looks the same. Meanwhile, the procrastinator's favorite fantasy keeps running in the background. Tomorrow, I'll become a different person. Tomorrow, I'll wake up early. I'll be focused. I'll finally lock in. I'll study for 6 hours straight. But tomorrow is psychologically seductive because it feels clean. Tomorrow has no mistakes attached to it yet. Today already feels messy. Today already contains guilt, pressure, exhaustion, missed expectations. So your brain romanticizes tomorrow as this magical reset button where the new version of you finally appears. But the problem is that when tomorrow arrives, it becomes today. And today is where reality lives. This is why procrastination creates such a frustrating cycle. You're constantly imagining a future version of yourself, solving problems that your current self keeps avoiding. It's basically unpaid labor forced onto your future self. And future you is getting tired of it. Here's another thing people misunderstand. Procrastinators are often not unambitious people. In fact, many procrastinators care too much. They overthink. They want things to go well. They want certainty before action. They want the perfect plan before starting. Sometimes they delay because they're mentally trying to eliminate the possibility of failure before they begin, which is impossible. You cannot think your way out of discomfort. At some point, action has to happen, while uncertainty is still present. And ironically, procrastination creates the exact outcome people were trying to avoid. The student avoids studying because failing feels bad. Now, they procrastinate until the night before and perform terribly anyway. The creator delays uploading because they want the video to be perfect. Now months pass, and they never improve because they barely publish. The person avoids the difficult conversation because tension feels uncomfortable. Now the tension grows for weeks and becomes 10 times worse. Avoidance temporarily reduces discomfort, but permanently increases it. That's the trade. And once you see that clearly, procrastination starts looking less like relaxation and more like taking a loan with emotional interest. The longer you procrastinate, the more your brain starts treating unfinished tasks like permanent background noise. You're watching Netflix, but part of your brain is still thinking about the assignment. You're at the gym, but the email you still haven't answered is sitting somewhere in the back of your mind. You wake up already feeling behind before the day even starts. That's why procrastination is exhausting. Not because the tasks themselves are so hard, but because you never fully escape them mentally. And after a while, something even worse happens. You stop trusting yourself. You say you're going to do something, then you don't. Then it happens again tomorrow. Eventually, your own promises stop carrying weight. This is why procrastination destroys confidence quietly. Not in one dramatic moment, but through repeated self-betrayal. And most people try to fix this the wrong way. They wait. They wait until they feel ready. Wait until they feel motivated. Wait until life becomes less stressful. But here's the problem. Those feelings are incredibly unreliable. If you only act when you feel perfect, you'll spend most of your life standing still. Because motivation is heavily influenced by emotion, sleep, stress, energy, weather, distractions, mood, and about 50 other variables you don't control very well. The people who consistently get things done are usually not the people who feel motivated all the time. They're the people who stop treating emotions like permission. That's the difference. A procrastinator sees discomfort and interprets it as a stop sign. A productive person sees discomfort and interprets it as normal. That shift changes everything. Because most tasks are not actually difficult once you begin. The difficult part is the psychological friction before starting. You sit there thinking about the task, estimating the effort, imagining how annoying it will be, building it up in your head until replying to one email feels like preparing for a military operation. Meanwhile, the actual task takes 11 minutes. Your brain is terrible at estimating emotional difficulty in advance, especially when avoidance has become a habit. This is why starting small works so well. Not because small actions magically change your life overnight, but because they interrupt the avoidance cycle. Open the laptop, write one sentence. Study for 5 minutes. That's it. Once movement starts, resistance usually drops. You've probably experienced this before. You avoid something for an entire week, finally do it, and then immediately think, that honestly wasn't even that bad. Most of the suffering happened before the action. Your imagination created a bigger monster than reality did. Another thing that helps massively is reducing friction around productive behavior. People think discipline is about constantly forcing yourself, but environment matters far more than most realize. If distractions are easier to access than your work, your brain will naturally drift toward them. If every productive task requires too much setup, starting becomes harder. If your phone is next to you while working, your attention gets divided automatically. Humans consistently choose what's easy in the moment. That's not laziness, that's normal behavior. So make good actions easier to start, prepare things in advance, remove unnecessary barriers, lower the activation energy, and most importantly, stop identifying yourself as a procrastinator. That label becomes dangerous when repeated long enough. Because identity shapes behavior. If you constantly tell yourself, I never finish things, I'm lazy, I always procrastinate, your brain starts treating that pattern as your personality instead of a behavior you practiced repeatedly. But procrastination is not who you are. It's a habit of avoidance, and habits can change. The real goal is not becoming someone who never feels resistance. That person does not exist. The goal is becoming someone who can act while resistance is present. Because your life is mostly shaped by the things you repeatedly postpone or repeatedly do. Every time you delay action, you reinforce the habit of avoidance. Every time you follow through, even in small ways, you rebuild trust in yourself. And that trust matters more than motivation ever will. Because at the end of the day, successful people are usually not the people who constantly feel inspired. They're the people who stopped waiting for inspiration before they move.